I'm joined tonight by the next two competitors selected for Trial by Combat 2022. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hello, everyone. My name is Marra Edwards, and I compete for Furman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alekri. I'm a third-year undergraduate at the University of Chicago.
Congratulations to both of you on being selected. Totally well-deserved for reasons we'll talk about in just a second. I want to start with Marra. Marra, Furman is obviously a very storied program, but it's never been selected for Trial by Combat. This is the first time we're going to have someone from your program competing at the tournament. How did you feel when you got the call?
I literally was so excited. I didn't think I was going to apply. I started thinking about it after Orcs, and then after Nationals, our program director, Dr. Glenn Neubauer, was like, apply. And I did, and I didn't think I would make it. And then I got the call and I was so excited. And I really am excited to be representing Furman because we have had some extraordinary individual competitors and teams. And I'm just happy that I get to go and represent them, and hopefully I can, do well and I don't, make a bad name for us out there. But I'm really excited.
Ali, were you surprised about being selected, or was this something you kind of expected after your amazing finish at NCT, which we'll talk about?
I never planned on doing TBC. It was our coach, Sam Jahangir, who was really sort of pushing me to think about it. I was hoping one of the fourth years would do it, but they've decided to fully retire. So after Nationals, I decided, all right, I'll do it.
I don't know if you know this, Ali, but this is a pretty grueling tournament.
Yeah.
Are you going to be more enthusiastic about it when the actual tournament comes?
Yes. I'll be enthusiastic. The adrenaline that gets me when I'm doing mock trial, that should be sufficient.
Marra, you mentioned Dr. Glenn Neubauer. He is, of course, the former president of AMTA and the fearless leader Furman mock trial. Talk about what it's like to work with him.
He is wonderful. I think everyone who's ever met him, whether it be at Top Mock or, if you saw him at Empire as a high school mocker, I mean, HN is just awesome. I think he was really proud of our team this year. Both of our teams, we made it to Orcs, and then we got a team to Nationals. This is actually his last year as our program director, so I think we sent him out with a bang, and I'm really happy about that. Agent is just a great person. He's the type of person that you want fighting for you in your corner, and so I'm glad that I have him in my corner.
So there's another coach on Furman's coaching staff that I selfishly want to talk about. Her name is Allison Stevens, and she is going to be a 1L at Drexel in the fall. Why don't you talk about how awesome she is?
Oh, she's extraordinary. She was our president last year. She came to our Orcs and judged a scrimmage for us, and then she came to Nationals to come support us. Allison is great. I mean, we like to joke, she really gets into the trial boxes. She's very serious about our trial boxes. She wants them organized in a certain way. We have to keep track of them. And to this day, we tell the freshmen, if you lose a trial box, we're going to send Allison Stevens. She is, she's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, Allison is wonderful. I've gotten the chance to know her over the last couple of months through the application process. Actually meeting her in person for the first time this weekend, and I'm really excited. And I'm really excited to start working with her in the fall. She applied to the law school through our Courtroom Scholars Program, which, for those of you watching who don't know, Drexel Law offers scholarships to college competitors. And Allison applied for one of those scholarships and got one of them. And she has nothing but nice things to say about you, Marra, and I'm excited to hear that those sentiments go back to her as well. And I'm really, really excited. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about NCT. And Ali, I want to start with you. You guys were in the final round, which is an incredible feat. How did you feel when your name was called at the closing ceremony?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but we were ballot blind. So we didn't know how we were doing until after round 4. And we knew that the Tufts maybe was sort of in the running as well. So we sort of half and half whether we would our name would be called. We were joining hands, sort of just really stressed, really nervous about it. And when our name was called, it was like all the work that we've put into this for this whole season, it's come to fruition. We were just happy to be there. The first U Chicago team in history to make it to the final round.
I don't think I could ever be ballot blind at a tournament. I would drive everybody around me crazy. So did you guys have a sense that you were doing well, even though you were ballot blind? I mean, why were you guys so optimistic after round 4? Did you feel like the rounds went really well and you could have had a chance to be in that final?
We just felt good about every single round. There wasn't one round where we felt our performance was particularly poor. The competition we faced was certainly tough, but we felt good about our individual performances. So whether we would make it to the final round or whether we didn't, we felt good about how we did.
I want to talk about your season a little bit. Obviously, you finished very strongly. You guys were 1-7 at GAMTI, and then 11-1 in the preliminary rounds at NCT. How did you guys have such a crazy turnaround?
Well, GAMTI was I like to describe it to those who ask as a learning experience. It was awful. I mean, it was my first time attorneying in the stack season. So, I mean, if you see my performance in GAMTI, I don't know if there's footage. I was an absolute mess. I was a wreck. I was stuttering. I had all these nerves. The witnesses were walking all over me on cross-examination. It was not too good. So after GAMTI, we all felt a bit low, a bit depressed, I guess you could say. But we turned it around. We knew what we had to work on. We knew what we had to do, become more confident, get more of a feel for it. I mean, with attorneying, it really comes with practice and experience. So the more comfortable I felt doing this newish role for me, the better I got at it. And especially with the mentorship that we had from our coach Sam Jahangir. I mean, it's his birthday today. I want to shout him out. And with the 4th years on our program, we just received immense support. And I'm surprised myself how quickly we turned it around, but we did, and we just pressed on.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who was surprised, as soon as you watched the final round, you were kind of not surprised anymore. I saw your opening in the final, and I was blown away. It was one of the best openings I've ever seen in any round. I was going to say championship round, but any round. Where are you from, Ali?
I'm from a tiny island in the Middle East called Bahrain. It's quite an obscure little place. It's basically a dot on the map. You're going to have to really zoom in to find it. But you might be wondering why I've got the British accent, which a lot of people do wonder. It's because I went to a British international school in Bahrain, and I've got a lot of British influence from a close friend of mine.
How often do judges think your accent is fake?
I actually got 0 comments on my accent, which is funny because we've got another like a properly British person, a British national in our program, and he's gotten comments that judges think his accent could be better. So no, I haven't received any comments on my accent.
Maria, I want to talk about your season a little bit. I looked through the tab summaries, and you didn't have many individual awards in the fall or during the invitational season, but as soon as the AMPA season started, you kind of went on a crazy award spree. You won an award at regionals, an award at Orcs, and the only double All-American award, double All-American attorney award at nationals. What happened?
So I think in the invitational season, I was doing a lot of work on just like figuring out the case, figuring out who I am as an attorney. I kind of like have been struggling with just like, who is Marae? How do I be myself and still, keep my professional demeanor? And I think around regionals, I just kind of started to get it. And I've been doing mock trial for a really long time. I've been doing it since middle school. And I think I've changed a lot since middle school. And I think so has my style as an attorney. I've become a lot more aggressive, and I just kind of just attack when I see the space to. And I think that that's something that I really just started to set in at regionals. And I mean, I really like throughout the season, I wasn't really looking to get awards. I was just looking to make sure, like, are we going to advance to orcs? Are we going to advance nationals? How can I be, instrumental in doing that? And then with that, the awards just kind of came. I'm going to be honest, at nationals. So I've always like wanted an All-American Attorney Award because, I think it's a pretty big honor for a college mock trialer. But, we hit UCLA first round and I was like, oh, there's no way. I was like we were in that round. I think that was definitely our worst round just because, it was all of our first time at nationals. We were all really nervous and it showed. And, going into nationals, I didn't feel as confident, but I think my experience doing mock trial really helps me just settle in. And like, I have good basic instincts. So I just kind of stuck with that.
What did you think of Camille Schaefer in that round? One of your combat opponents.
Phenomenal. I think she was Jay Murtaugh in that round. She was really good. Like it just, all of their attorneys and all of their witnesses just had like that quality that just made you want to watch them and listen to them. They were outstanding. And then they were also just really nice people. I mean, before the round, we were all like, talking and just hanging out. Like they were just really, really good people and they're amazing mockers. I mean, all of them across the board, phenomenal.
I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the upcoming tournament in a couple of months. First off, are you guys ready to announce your coaches and second chairs?
I can announce my coach.
All right, we'll settle for that.
My coach is going to be Lawrence Hilton. I think he's an 06 graduate of Furman. He was an All-American. He competed at Top Gun. He's amazing. He came and coached. He's been coaching since I want to say my sophomore year for Furman. Obviously, he coached the team at University of Miami in Ohio, and they went to nationals and won. But he's been coaching for us, and I mean, he's I think one of the big reasons that our B team got a bid to Orcs. He's just phenomenal, and I'm really excited to work with him.
Allie, is Sam going to be joining you in Los Angeles? He will be joining me, yes. I wouldn't be where I am without him. I got to have him as my coach. I've got my second chair. Mr. Farnsworth will be joining me. He had the very famous line in the final round, "Let's play ball." I'm sure you'll remember him.
Yeah, Sam Farnsworth. I actually remember him when he was a gladiator competitor. I actually got to see him compete in person in, I think it was 2019, the last in-person gladiator in California. And he was fantastic then as a high school competitor. And obviously he is much better now, which is kind of crazy to say. Any chance he'll legally change his name to Farnsworth with a PH for this tournament?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well, that could affect his pairings in round one. So maybe I'll get him to change his mind. All right. Last question before we get into the video we're going to watch today. It's prediction time. So if you've seen the show, you know the drill, but just in case you haven't, reminder of the rules. I want to hear your prediction for the winner of Trial by Combat 2022. You may not choose each other. You can choose anyone you want. Marae, you're first.
I'm gonna say Ben Crosby. We hit Patrick Henry at Orcs. We were very scared. That was not the pair we wanted. But they were just phenomenal, and Ben was amazing. Like we closed against each other, and I think the judges in the round were like, Marae, you closed, and I thought the defendant was guilty, and then Ben, you closed, and I thought he wasn't guilty. So it was like one of those things where it just was like we were really like neck and neck, and I just think that he is amazing. He just has the calm and cool collected style that is like, I love that style of mock trial. So I think we definitely should be watching out for him.
Yeah, I'll buy Ali a few seconds to think about this, but he cut his hair after the tournament last year. He had a very long hair at the tournament last year, short hair now. Do you think that's going to affect his performance at all?
I think if anything, it's made it better. I think it's just, because I watched one of his rounds from Trial by Combat, and it was amazing. I think the short hair is why he's so great.
Yeah, more aerodynamic or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, Ali, I've given you a few seconds to think about this. Let's hear it.
Well, I know his name has been mentioned on previous episodes, but I'm going to pick the attorney who perfect ranked at NCT, Travis Harper. I think he's got a good shot. I saw him last year at TBC when I was Sahil's second chair. He's a really good attorney. I think he's got a shot of making it.
So let me ask you about a little bit about the final round. And one of the things that I thought was, I don't know that it's right or wrong, but I just thought was interesting was that Harvard chose prosecution, which was the side that Travis was not an attorney on. So what was kind of your reaction, your team's reaction when that selection was made? Were you happy that you weren't going to see Travis as an attorney? Were you kind of like, whoa, were you going to pick defense if you won the flip?
We were going to pick prosecution, actually. We were more happy with our prosecution case than our defense case. It was just more clean. We had more fun with it. I was playing an FBI agent on the prosecution. We just thought we'd have more fun with it. We were really surprised that Harvard picked P instead of D, especially given, as you said, Mr. Harper, he perfect ranked on that side. I don't know what went to their decision, but it certainly seemed like it worked out for them.
Yeah, he kind of made us all look like fools. But I definitely was watching that closing ceremony on the stream and thinking, I can't believe he just did that. But he was right. We were all wrong. That's why he's your pick for the winner of Trial by Combat 2022, I guess. All right, let's get into this video. So what we're doing for the next few episodes is we're going to do a little bit of scouting for you guys. And we're going to watch some video of one of your opponents. So tonight we're going to watch a video of James Orr from Virginia. We're going to watch his closing argument from the National Online Trial Advocacy Competition that happened in March of 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And for those of you who don't remember, basically what happened was right after kind of at the onset of the pandemic, Nationals was canceled, and kind of to feed or fill the void that Nationals being canceled left behind, Justin Bernstein at UCLA Law, he started an online tournament where people could submit, or competitors could submit, video of themselves performing in, I think it was an opening statement, a closing argument, or a witness portrayal. And so James Orr from Virginia, I think at the time he was a sophomore, submitted a video giving a closing argument, and he actually made it to the final four of that competition. He was knocked out by Regina Campbell, who those of you who are following the law school circuit right now know is pretty good. And his video is fantastic. So we're going to get into this video right now.
Members of the jury, there are some things that everyone in this courtroom can agree about today. Everyone agrees that one of Jewel Tan's parents paid Spencer Matthew to fabricate test scores. And everyone agrees that Mr. Matthew was paid to try to get Jewel into college. That's the right plan. But where we disagree, and what this case really comes down to, is whether the state's actually proven that Melanie Tam was that parent, or that she even committed a crime.
Now, I want to start by saying that this is James Orr 2 years ago, with very limited help, if any help, from any coaches. What do you guys notice just in the first minute of this closing?
I personally, he's just commanding that garage. First of all, I love that it's in a garage. That feels very authentic to that mock trial for that period of time. So I love that. But just everything I feel like he's doing, he hasn't moved yet, but every hand motion is just very intentional. And again, it's that cool, sort of calm, collected mock trial that I like watching.
It's very UVA, I think, for one. I think deliberate is the best word to describe it. Everything feels very purposeful. Even in the garage, it still feels like authentically UVA.
I wonder if he picked the garage on purpose. I was just going to say, I wonder if he deliberately picked the garage to get that authenticity.
Yeah, he's got plenty of room to work with. I don't know what that brown thing is there. I don't, it looks like a door of some sorts, but he's got some props. We'll see if he uses them. But yeah, lots of room. Love the choice of the garage.
Because they have the right plan, but they've got the wrong parent.
I like that theme.
Now, before I go any further, I want to make one thing very clear. And that's that only one side in today's case had the burden to prove who actually paid for those test scores. And it wasn't us. That was on the prosecution alone. To prove
I think, Bray, something that you said is that this video reminds you of like that time of mock trial. And it's so true because people were still kind of figuring out what online advocacy was supposed to look like. And I competed in the law school, not me personally, but I coached the law school version of this tournament. And I had one student like in a living room. We had like a courtroom set up. And now everyone is kind of just doing the same thing with the white background, like you see here. But it's very nostalgic to like watch this. It reminds me of being on lockdown in March of 2020. Not good memories, but very, very distinct.
I love the hand motions. After nationals, like every hand motion I did was like a mock trial hand motions. Like every time I would talk, like I'd be ordering pizza. Like, can I get like a pizza with, this stuff on it? Like I don't know, I could not get out of that mock trial mindset, and those hand motions are just bringing me back.
Is Tam guilty beyond any reasonable doubt? We didn't have to call any witnesses to that stand or offer you any evidence at all. And that's important. Because the prosecution's burden wasn't just to present some witnesses or to offer you some evidence. It was to give you so much evidence that you have no reasonable doubt what happened here. The prosecution hasn't done that. They haven't even come close. They haven't even provided clear answers to the 3 simple questions that we asked you to keep in mind at the beginning of this trial. What actually happened with the admissions? Who else might have done this? And what did the police do to investigate the other parent?
Classic
So
3
let's start
questions.
with that first question.
Classic.
Yeah.
What actually happened with the admissions? And on this one, members of the jury, there are a lot of things that we agree with the prosecution about. We agree that the SAT scores that Jultan, the daughter, sent to USC were fake. We agree that Mr. Matthew, the state's only witness, was the person who fabricated those scores. And we agree that someone in the Tam family paid Mr. Matthew to do it. But there are a lot of things that plan doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you who had been meeting with Mr. Matthew. It doesn't tell you who had been planning this with Mr. Matthew. It doesn't tell you who wrote the checks to Mr. Matthew. And it doesn't even tell you that Melanie Tam was the person who had been working with Mr. Matthew to try to cheat her daughter into college.
I really like the tone of voice that he's taking. I feel like on my team, we always joke about like the really like mock trial sounding voices. His voice, like, I don't know. I like the voice, like his voice and like the movements. It's all very like natural, but still so professional and so engaging. I mean, he's just, this is him as a sophomore. I'm excited. I think is probably going to be the best choice of word to see him at TBC. Yeah,
I think he's unlikely to polarize. I think he doesn't do the, like you said, Maria, the mock trial voice. He doesn't really do that. His style is pretty kind of matter of fact and very substantive. I think he's unlikely to turn a judge off, which is, I think, a good thing. I wonder if there are points in this closing where we'll see him kind of try to turn it up a little bit. And I wonder how that contrast would look. And maybe that's something that he's improved over the last 2 years. If I'm, putting my scouting hat on for a second, I'd say I like to see James try to be dramatic and see if he can do it. I think that would be a fun contrast with what we're seeing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always very clean. That's his style.
Yeah, really, precision is super important, I think, to any UVA competitor. But I think James does that really well.
Yeah.
Brings us to that second entire premise of the prosecution's case here is that one of the parents in the Tam family paid Mr. Matthew to fabricate test scores. That one of the parents in the Tam family gave Mr. Matthew 2 checks to do that. And that one of the parents in that family is the suspect who committed wire fraud. But members of the jury, they've got the wrong parent. Because Mrs. Tam got on that stand and she told you that she did not pay for those test scores. But she told you who might have. Her husband.
So this is a really good example. One of the things that I tell new competitors at the law school is keeping your hands at your sides is really important. And it feels really weird when you do it, but it doesn't look weird. So I would show someone a video of James here and I would say, when he speaks with his hands at his sides, it doesn't look weird. It looks confident. It looks powerful. And he does a very good job of using his hands, but only for a reason. And I think this is a real, for new competitors who are watching this, I think this is a really good example of purposeful gestures rather than just moving your hands for the sake of not knowing what to do with them.
Yeah, having your hands by your sides is sort of the default. It makes it so that when you do move your hands, it's much more effective and it makes the point clear.
Yeah, the analogy that I use is the hands at your sides is like your fastball if you're a baseball fan. And you throw the curveball and the knuckle and all that stuff sporadically for effect, but you throw the fastball 70% of the time. And that's hands at your sides.
Andrew Tam. She told you that she didn't know who signed those checks to Mr. Matthew, but that it could have been her husband. And she told you that it was her husband, not her, who had been having those regular meetings with Mr. Matthew. Even Mr. Matthew admitted to that he had been meeting with Andrew Tam. So the prosecution doesn't get to stand here and ask you to convict Mrs. Tam when they haven't done enough to rule out the alternative suspect in the same family. And it's not like the name Andrew Tam came out of thin air. He's the defendant's husband. He lived at the same house the prosecution claims those checks were written.
So James had to have cleared this garage out for this video. Like, I'm sure there was stuff around and like on the walls, but I'm wondering why he left the shovel there. Like, is he going to use it?
I hope he does. I really do.
If this were Bennett Dembski, there's no doubt that he'd be using this shovel, right? Like, he definitely would use it.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking about the cabinets. Like, I was like, I wonder what in here he's going to use. If he's gonna like open the garage door, and
right.
like this, like the defendant's gonna be behind him. Like,
that's what I was thinking too. Like, he would open the doors there and be like the drinks from last year. We'll see. There's still a few minutes left.
So there was good reason to at least take a look at Andrew Tam. Which brings us to that third and final question.
He was going towards the shovel.
Say that again?
He was walking towards the shovel. I was hoping he'd go closer to it.
Yeah, we still have a couple of minutes. I'm trying to think of how he could work this into this college admissions case here, but I don't know. I'm sure he could. He's James.
The other parent. Now the prosecution came up here and they showed you those checks as though they were some kind of a smoking gun. That somehow those 2 checks for $140,000 and $10,000 proved that Mrs. Tam paid Mr. Matthew to fabricate those test scores. But members of the jury, the prosecution never even proved who signed those checks, much less that it was Mrs. Tam. Because a couple of illegible scribbles above a black line is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
So one thing that I see newer competitors or people who watch a lot of AMTA but are still new at this do is they don't use their closing argument to argue. They use their closing argument to recite testimony and then say a bunch of like one-liners that they saw on YouTube. And I think James does a really good job of arguing. And that may seem obvious, but watch a random AMTA round. It's mostly at the lowest level of where you have new competitors, mostly just reciting testimony and not a lot of argument. And I think one place where newer competitors can improve is using your closing argument to argue points, to argue why the evidence proves your case, rather than to say, and then witness A took the stand and he said this. And then witness B took the stand and she said this. And I think that's what you see a lot. He does a really good job of arguing in this closing.
Yeah, especially on the defense side of the case, if it's a criminal case, you've got that lovely rhetoric of reasonable doubt to make your argument. And I think Mr. Orr here does a fantastic job of that.
And the police, they could have tested those checks for fingerprints, but they didn't. So ask yourselves, what would a fingerprint analysis show? Would it have shown that Melanie Tam had nothing to do with paying Mr. Matthew for those scores? Would it have shown that somebody else's fingerprints were on those checks? Now, the prosecution wants you to believe they have proof beyond a reasonable doubt here, but they don't get to show you just bits and pieces of the story and then ask you to stop asking any other questions.
I think his hand
It's not like
motion,
the prosecution ever.
his hand motions are just like so good. Like, and I think a lot of people, especially when you're newer, you want to kind of keep it in the same like waist level like movements, but like using like going like this, like that alone, like it wakes the jury up a little bit. And it's just like he's just so physical with his like motions and like even the way he moves around. And especially because he's not using any demos, it looks like. And I think that is so important, especially online, keeping the jury like involved like that. That's so important.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's going to be critical at Combat, if we're scouting, and it's only the three of us here, no one's listening, so I'll give you guys this advice, is that I think use of your space is going to be really important. And again, that may seem obvious. Of course, the use of your space is important, but remember, we've been in Zoom world for the last couple of years. And my guess is the performances we'll see will range from not really making much use of the space to using the space, but not well. And I'll predict that the people who are in the playoffs are people who are using the space really, really well. Did you guys think that, or let me ask it this way, was it obvious that at NCT, a lot of the people that you guys were competing against had been on Zoom and maybe weren't as comfortable in the courtroom as, back when we were in person for everything?
I would say that maybe for like a few people, I think that was the case. And I even think so for like on my team. We have one competitor, I think he's really good, really knowledgeable. And I told him like, if you just like move your body more, like, and it's not even like he's not nervous. It's just if he just like moves around more and acts comfortable, like that's all it is. Just acting like you're comfortable, acting like that is your space. That is like, that wins you part of the points. And of course, like we did see a bit of that. And I was even worried about that for myself, like, because I think the turnaround from regionals to orcs, like it was very short and like getting used to being in person was really daunting. So getting back to just like being, because we were confined to this little box and like you couldn't move out of this box, and getting used to like using your whole space. I think that's so important. But I think for the most part at nationals, people did use their space because I mean, obviously they were all incredible teams.
Ali, I thought you in your opening that I referenced earlier were really good at using the room. How much did you guys work on that from regionals to orcs, from orcs to nationals, given that we were largely on Zoom this year?
Well, we worked a lot on it. Going back to our performance and GAMT, especially with me, I was just pacing back and forth. I didn't know how to move. And then we moved back online, of course, which meant it was more difficult if we were to move back in person for orcs and nats, which we eventually did. So what our team did is we started practicing for in-person mock trial whilst we were practicing for regionals. So well before we even went to orcs and nationals, because we knew it was something we had to work on. We knew that we were good online, but we had to make sure that we could translate that to in person. So what we did before every single round, our attorney bench would mark out the places that we would all start our cross-examination from, or start our direct examination from, mark out areas of possible movement, sort of like triangles of where we can move about the well, and especially for speeches as well. I would start scripting out where I would stand, where I would move for every single round. I'd sort of go through the motions, figure out, right, at this point, I'm going to move over there. This point, I'm going to move over there. Especially the movement I like the most is when I go to the witness stand. It's very physical, very deliberate, and it's different for every single room we're in. So we got to make sure we script it out beforehand, and that's what we did.
Showed you the bank account that those checks were drawn from. If the police had investigated that account, what would it have shown? Would it have shown any other payments to Mr. Matthew that Mrs. Tam didn't know about? Would it have shown that somebody was trying to pay Mr. Matthew to throw Mrs. Tam under the bus? And what about Mrs. Tam's husband's private bank account? Why didn't the police bother to look at it? If you're wondering what the answer to any of those questions is, you can understand why. Because the prosecution didn't answer any of those questions. And it's not like they called a police officer to that stand who could have answered any of those questions for you. So why didn't the police decide to investigate Andrew Tam? We don't know. Was that $10,000 check insurance for Andrew to make sure that Mr. Matthew wouldn't rat him out if Andrew ever got caught? We don't know. Who even signed those checks in the first place? We simply don't know. And we don't know, after we don't know, after we don't know, does not add up to proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's really good.
And at the end of the day, that's what makes this case so unfortunate.
We're not going to be on Zoom anymore, but I will say the step towards the camera at like the come to Jesus moment at the end is really powerful. And now that we're not on cameras anymore, like we'll probably not get the chance to do that ever again. But this was, I think, at the time, the first time that really anyone had done Zoom mock trial, and that this was a concept that no one had ever tried. So really, really impressive for him to like kind of catch on to that idea really early on in the online competition world.
Because nobody wants to.
I mean, you almost feel like he's in front of you because he's so close.
To try to cheat his daughter into college. Nobody wants to believe that husband would pay to make sure his wife would go under the bus if he ever got caught. But that's the story the prosecution just couldn't rule out. And the point of this trial wasn't for Mrs. Tam to defend herself against a conclusion the prosecution reached ahead of time and then just filled in after the fact. It was for you to hold them to their burden, to prove Mrs. Tam guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. But they failed. They failed because Mrs. Tam did not pay for those test scores. They have the right plan, but they've got the wrong parent. That's why we ask you to find Mrs. Tam not guilty.
No shovel. What a shame. So I guess if we're scouting James, bad use of props, bad use of exhibits during the closing.
Yeah,
Just kidding. I think you couldn't use exhibits during that closing, but still, the shovel was there. James is really good. I mean, that was him as a sophomore. He's a very decorated high school competitor, and obviously he has done really well in the year since this video. What do you guys think about him as a competitor at Combat in a few months?
I mean, I want to say I hope I don't like have to compete against him, but like I definitely am going to. So yeah, that's gonna be a weekend. But he's amazing. He just has like a very clean style. Like you were saying earlier, though, I do think it's interesting. Like to see how he's progressed since then, like if he's more dramatic in some of those moments. Because I think some of those moments, I think he was like almost hitting like the really dramatic moment. So I'm excited to see if he like starts doing that, now.
Yeah,
Ali's like ditto.
yeah. I've encountered James a lot throughout my mock trial career. I've always respected him as a mock trial competitor. He's one of the best. So I also don't hope to hit him at TBC. We scrimmaged them before Nats, and I'd say that I think he has gotten that sort of that element of drama into his vocal inflections. It might just be because it was in person, so it's easier to see those kinds of things. If it's more immersive naturally. But yeah, and we will be in person for TBC, so that's exciting.
Fingers crossed. I'd like to see you guys in LA, not in these Zoom boxes, hopefully, but we'll see. Tell our viewers what year in school you guys are.
I'm a junior.
Wow. And Ali, you're a junior also, right?
Yes, I'm also a junior.
So you guys actually have one more year to compete in AMTA, even after this crazy year. Man, that is deeply upsetting to the other schools that are watching this, I'm sure. Well, what are you guys doing this summer? Other than competing at Combat?
Yeah, I'm doing some research on Furman campus with one of our history professors. I'm not a history major, I just really like history, so I'm going to be doing some of that research. And then I'm also going to be counseling for Top Mock, our high school program, week long. It's super fun. If you're a high school watching this, you should apply.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's my summer plans.
And I've heard that HN throws a great party, regardless of where it is. I've said it on the show before, but when I was a competitor, the Furman Orc in 2015, my Delaware team was assigned there for some reason, and it was the best tournament I've ever been to. It was incredible. I mean, Glenn throws a great tournament, and I've heard nothing but good things about Top Mock. I wish that was around when I was a high school competitor, but it's fantastic. If you're a high school competitor watching this, I agree with Marra. You should definitely apply. Ali, what are you doing this summer?
I got to start studying for the LSAT. I want to go straight through to law school, so I got to make sure I focus in and do all the law school application stuff, the personal statement, the LSAT. Make sure I maintain my GPA. I'd say though that my most exciting summer plan is now a TBC, specifically going to LA for the first time. I've always wanted to go to the West Coast. I don't know if you know this, but first year for the U Classic tournament, when it was back in person, we weren't able to go because the flight was canceled due to bad weather. And then the next year, of course, COVID hit, so we couldn't go. And then this year, it was originally in person, but then COVID spiked, so it switched to online. So I guess fourth time's the charm. I finally get to go to LA.
If we knew those facts, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have invited you. So maybe you should drive, or I don't really know what the solution is here, but maybe we should move it to Philly. I'll think about that. I should call Justin as soon as this is over.
We're very good friends. They'll help me figure it out.
Well, I'm really excited to see you guys. Hopefully your flights aren't canceled, but that aside, I'm hoping to see you guys. And I said a couple of months, a few minutes ago when I was talking about Combat, but it's really a few weeks away at this point. I mean, at the time of this recording, it's late April. So we are getting really, really, really close. I'm super excited to see you both. And good luck with your prep before the prep.
Thank you. I think that 24-hour period is going to be like the best and worst experience of my life. I'm like trying to mentally prepare for that.
Yeah, it's definitely a mental game to psych yourself up, but it's doable. I think most people, Camille Schaefer was on the episode that came out before this, and she said something that I thought was really kind of the best way of saying it, which is the prep is basically just to get yourself mentally ready for that 24 hours. And that's kind of the name of the game, to kind of psych yourself up that you can do this. And you guys are both fantastic. And I have no doubts that you guys are going to be really, really good. I can't wait to watch you compete in person.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.